Okay, ladies, we are about to head into another amazing podcast episode with Sheena. So, Sheena, can you take it away and tell our community about yourself?
Yeah, first off, Hazel, thank you so much for having me here today. And I love that, you're also Canadian and we're both from the same city. So for those of you who may not know me, my name is Sheena Yap Chan. I am a Wall Street Journal bestselling author on my book, The Tao of Self-Confidence. I have a podcast under the same name, and I also do public speaking, consulting on building self-confidence.
Amazing. Thank you. Welcome. I'm so glad that we have you and that we're talking about this topic as well. So, before you wrote your book, and what our tagline and the question we like to ask all of our guests is, what's interrupting your life? So tell us a little bit about who was Sheena before this book, and what led you to writing this book?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, back then, I just had the podcast and I just really wanted to create representation for Asian women, especially living in Toronto. I never saw anybody that looked like me in the media. So I was always ashamed of being Asian. Always wanted to
Mhm.
have blonde hair and blue eyes, wanted to assimilate to Western culture. And it wasn't until my 20s when I dyed my hair back from blonde to my original hair color that got me into doing this type of work. So before the book, I actually had another book that was already out. It was called Asian Women Who Boss Up, and it's a co-author book that features the stories of 18 Asian women who are able to forge their own path, overcome obstacles, and thrive. And so, I was utilizing different forms of media to create better representation. Um, and doing some different things online. But yeah, that's a little bit about me before that other book came out.
Amazing. Wow, that's good to know. Good to know. So when you before the book and before, well, I know you have two books. so um but before you began on that journey, what are some of the mindset struggles that you were having during that process or
A
that
lot,
time?
a lot. It was the reason why I started the podcast. I was dealing with my own confidence issues back in 2015. And so I was
Hmm.
trying to find resources that really catered to Asian women's confidence. But of course, there wasn't any. And so part of me thought something was wrong with me because I was the only one not feeling good enough, second guessing myself, resisting a lot, pleasing others. But
Hmm.
culturally, we're told not to talk about the things we go through. So I started the podcast as a way to serve representation and a support system. And the first 5 years, I was still dealing with a lot of confidence issues because when you're taught to do one way of living your life, and then, culturally, Asian women are seen to go to school, get married, get a job, have kids, never rock the boat.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to unpack culturally, right? The traumas
Hmm.
I've been through, the issues that I had to deal with, learning to open up, learning to be vulnerable, learning to ask for help. So I was always comparing myself to all the women that I've interviewed on my podcast because I've interviewed over 700 Asian women on this topic. So, it's a lot, right? And then when
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
women, slaying in life, and I'm like, why are they even here? So that was I had a lot of things to unpack, a lot of cultural, and then my own things to unpack so that I can show up as my best self. And then being able to interview so many women and their stories, it was really refreshing because I realized I wasn't the only one dealing with all these things. A lot of people were dealing with them as well.
Hmm.
So, sometimes it feels like we're the only ones dealing with our own issues, not realizing everyone's dealing with it. It's just nobody talks about it.
Right. That is why we do this podcast, so that we can talk about it, right? And make it almost like a universal language for everyone to understand that you're not the only one. There's people out there, and this is what they've done. And it's also important for us to create for our community as we create a toolbox of strategies that other women have used to get past whatever the interruption is. So that's amazing. Wow. And 700 women. So
Yeah.
can you share a little bit of what are like, we use the word interruption, so what are the conversations like? What are they saying? What are the limiting beliefs that they're struggling with, that
I
they
mean, I
share
think
with you?
yeah, I think we all go through similar things, right? Not feeling
Hmm.
good enough, second guessing ourselves, or imposter syndrome, doubting ourselves, resisting because of fear, having low
Hmm.
self-confidence due to inaction. As generally women, we're too afraid to even make the first step, or we overguess, or we overanalyze, or we want things to be perfect before we start doing something. But
Mhm.
if we keep waiting for that perfect moment, nothing happens. And this is
Right.
why men face a huge confidence gap over men. Men don't care about making mistakes. They'll go out there and ask for that promotion even if they're 20% ready. Versus women, they're 110% ready and they're still guessing to see if they're capable or
Yeah.
they're the right person. And so a lot of things interrupt us, especially the perception of ourselves, right? We always feel like we're not good enough. There's someone better out there. We're too afraid to
Mhm.
ask questions. We're too afraid to ask mistakes. Then we deal with all the trauma that we dealt with that we like to hide in the back because if we don't talk about it, we think it goes away, not realizing that's what's really holding us back. Um,
Mhm.
in fact, it's the reason why I had this book written because when it comes to leadership, we really got to figure out what is holding us back. How do we figure out that, then find ways to heal from it so then we can show up as our best self? Because if we don't work on our mindset, then we're not going to show up as the best leader, the best entrepreneur, whatever it is that you want, right? We won't be able to
Mhm.
show up as our authentic self. And as women, we think vulnerability is a weakness when it's our greatest strength.
Yeah. Yeah. And we need to be more vulnerable with each other, right? So that we can
Definitely.
also learn. So, in your book, do you provide tools, strategies for women?
Yeah.
Do you talk about like, or maybe you can talk about what your experience has been in that, and then connect it to the book in terms of like the mindset stuff, the mindset work that you had to do, the positive mindset stuff to get to the point of creating this book.
Yeah, I mean, I still had my own doubts too, because I mean, who am I to write a book about leadership? And then I was
Hmm.
approached by one of the biggest publishers in the world, so that was like a big deal. And so at first, I was kind of afraid to even write this. Like, I literally wrote this book last summer, to get it
Oh
out
wow.
earlier this year, in the
Hmm.
month of May for Asian Heritage Month. And here we are today. In fact, it just passed the 2 month mark. But by the time this comes out, it's way more. It'll be longer than that. But um, yeah, I mean, I had to go through my own doubts and realize I have to do this not just for myself, but for all
Hmm.
the Asian women out there who feel like they're not good enough. I want them to realize what's possible for me is possible for them.
Yeah.
I'm not I'm not somebody who has a million followers or knows what they're doing at the time. I'm figuring this out as I go. So that's what I want to show people, right? That
Hmm.
there are Asian women out there who can be authors, who can be leaders, who doesn't have to be constantly seen by their negative stereotypes, especially
Right.
today. We're still seen by them. We're seen as quiet, submissive, obedient. We're seen as sex objects. We're seen as robots. We're have no emotions. And I want to dismantle that because it's because of those reasons we are targeted more easily and
Yeah.
anti-Asian hate. We're not
Hmm.
promoted. We're not seen as leaders. In fact, Asian women in America have one of the lowest representations when it comes to leadership roles.
Mm. Wow. Wow. For me, this resonates with, I also work in education. So with my students, like sharing this book, sharing this, once this podcast episode goes live, sharing it with them, because a lot, they need to see this, because they struggle so much. And it's deep rooted, as you said, from childhood, right? Culturally, it's like you're taught a certain way. And even society's perception of Asian women is also reinforcing what they already think about themselves.
Yeah.
So, wow. So, are there strategies and tools that you use currently to help your mindset, to build your mindset, to continue that journey that you're on?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I've learned is to be okay to ask for help because culturally we're told that asking for help is a sign of weakness
Hmm.
and a handout when really it's the total opposite. I also have a support system, a community that I can turn to when, I go through different things in my life because it's not always going to be rainbows and butterflies. Some days it's
Hmm.
going to suck. In fact,
Yeah.
it's going to suck a lot, right? Some days you'll get rejected 100 times. Some days you'll fall down, but having that support system that will tell you, like, listen, I've been there. I know what it's like. I know
Hmm.
you can get back up. That's what makes the difference. So, listening to people's stories, interviews. I love doing that because it pumps me up. And then also like working on my mindset every single day. Right? It's kind of working out like working out when you're exercising, right? If you want a fit body, what do? You exercise and eat well. I
Right.
mean, you can't just do it one day and then eat like junk
That's
for the
it.
next 3 months, right? It's daily work. So, I say you have to put in the work every single day because there's always gonna be new challenges and new setbacks. But if we know that if we have the tools and resources to overcome them, then we become invincible.
Right. And invincible is like the most powerful strength to have, especially when you have those down days, to go back to that invincible. You know what that feels like, so you know where you want to be,
Yeah.
right? So it's beautiful. Um, what else you have two books? Is that a third book?
No, this is my podcast. So this is
Ah,
the
okay.
podcast cover.
Yeah.
And then these 2 are my books up here.
Okay, perfect. So what are some of your goals? Like, because we're all about goals, goal setting. What's the next thing for you, for
It's
Sheena?
it's so funny because people constantly ask me what's my 5-year plan, what's my 10-year plan, and I'm always like, I haven't thought that far ahead. So,
We do 1 year and we break it into quarters.
oh,
That's it.
okay.
Yeah.
Even that, right? I just take things one step at a time. Of course, I always want to
Mhm.
build better representation for Asian women, so that's something that I'm constantly doing, right? Trying to find
Mhm.
different ways to bring visibility, to showcase, there are amazing Asian women out there. And, this goes beyond my community, right? Of course, this helps other women out there, other cultures, because we
Yeah.
all go through similar things, right? We've all gone
Mhm.
through trauma, racism, sexism, mental health, everything,
Yeah.
right? So even though me and you look different, we come from different cultures, it doesn't mean we can't relate to each other. Um,
100%.
and sometimes people see our culture as a disability, thinking we don't know how to relate to other people when it's the total opposite.
Opposite. Yeah.
Especially in a city like Toronto, where it's one of the most multicultural cities in the world, I still feel like we're not even really represented that well in media. So,
Mhm.
that's always something that I will continue to work on so that
Mhm.
we're all seen as equals. We're all seen as human beings instead of the color of our skin or cultural background and so on.
Mhm. Mhm. And what we bring. Like we need to be seen for all the things, the neat, the cool, the exciting things we can bring to the table as well. Um, so you talked about, let's look at the media, right?
Mhm.
And you talked about achieving, like, what does that goal look like? What do you want that to look like? How do you want the representation to be? What would it look like? What would I see?
Oh, yeah, I know, it'd be like BTS, like, they're everywhere, right? English isn't
Mm,
even their first language, they sing and dance in Korean and talk in Korean, they come from Korea, but yet they have a fan base in every single country, even in the most random places you never thought was possible, like, they have fans in Brazil, they have fans in Africa, their songs are number 1 in different countries all over the world, and
mhm,
sometimes people think if you don't speak English, you're stupid, right? Or if you have an
right.
accent, you're stupid. When it's far from the truth, we don't. For all we know, that person can speak 6 other languages and is very smart. But
Mhm,
because in North America, if English isn't your first language, then you're seen as stupid. So
yes.
this is why I love BTS because they never sang they before they didn't sing in Korean, right? They didn't sing in English. Everything was in Korean. They
Mm,
spoke in Korean, right? And people accommodated to them when they did interviews by having a translator, and things like that. And it just goes to show that, you could be 7 guys from Korea who love to sing and dance and still create a huge impact.
yeah.
Everything they touch turns to gold. Some of them
Mhm,
aren't even currently working and are still making an impact because now they have to serve the army in their own country. So
right.
that's the kind of impact I want for us, just worldwide, showcase that we are strong, we are courageous, we are confident, and to dismantle all the negative stereotypes we go through.
What a beautiful mission. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. And it's needed. It's so needed.
Definitely.
Mhm. So, for your own personal self, do you have a reset plan? Because I like to encourage people to have reset plans.
I think sometimes I just try to like step away from it, just
Hmm.
to rest and recharge. Sometimes
Yeah.
we get burnt out, exhausted from like the constant like putting in the work. And so sometimes I
Hmm.
just step away to just like, I don't know, just watch Netflix and not have to think about it, or I go for a jog. And I think that's how I reset. Just like be around nature, especially in the summer because our summers are so short.
Short.
What it's like being around nature, being near close to the water, just to kind of just mind dump everything so I can, you know, come back better, right? And realize everything
Mhm.
that was jumbled up in my head, it's all gone. It's all released out there. And then I feel good after.
Yeah, I love it. I love nature walks. And I know you live in the East area, so do you walk by the lakeshore?
Oh,
By
I'm
the
like
port?
way east.
Oh,
So
you're way east. Okay.
yeah, I live in Pickering.
Mhm.
So there's a beach sometimes that I'll jog to. It'll take about half an hour each way. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Um, and how do you celebrate yourself? Because we love celebrating ourselves here. So what do you do? What does it
Oh
look
yeah.
like when Sheena's celebrating?
I mean, sometimes I love celebrating with my family. We'll go out to eat somewhere fancy, somewhere nice. And I mean, if you live in Toronto, there's so many different restaurants to try,
Mhm.
right? From literally every country
Yeah.
in the world. So that's one of the things I do. Sometimes I'll do a little shopping spree. Sometimes I'll just take a day off and not do anything.
Ah, nice. Okay, and then some of the things that you stand for and that your book encourages is building self-confidence, living an authentic life, um, open up to the world. Like, what does that all mean to you?
I think like being able to be my imperfect self and knowing that I'm not going to be perfect. I'll have imperfections. I'll screw up probably along the way, make mistakes, and have to be okay with that. I know that I can course correct, I can
Mhm.
fumble, get back up. If I did something wrong to somebody, I'll apologize. Especially if I'm in the wrong, of course, right? Sometimes, we're too, sometimes we feel like we're too cool to apologize, but sometimes we
Yeah.
just need to apologize. It's fine, right? It's
Mhm.
not the end of the world. But I think,
Mhm.
yeah, for me, it's like, we don't have to be this perfect thing that society keeps telling us to be. We
Right.
can go out there and live life on our terms. Because when we can live life on our terms and as our authentic self, that's when everything really happens. So
Mhm.
if you have a bad day, you have a bad day. If you have a good day, you have a good day. If you have a spelling mistake on what you wrote, just correct it, right? Like
Yes.
these little things that we overthink and we think we're a failure because, oh no, we made this mistake. We're such a loser. It's like, no, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody.
Mhm.
I mean, you look at Elon Musk on Twitter and every day he's changing something about it, right?
Right.
And, if a woman was doing that, of course a woman would be like, vilified for it, right? But here's this one guy who's just figuring things out as he goes, and people don't really like give him the crap that a woman would have,
Would
right?
there? Yes.
So he's,
Yeah.
like now he's wanting to change it to X now instead of Twitter. I don't even know.
Mhm. Right.
If we did that, just imagine how much we can accomplish.
So much. It's just really and truly our mindset
Yeah.
and the relationship we have with ourselves, or we start to build with ourselves, so that we can, and break
Yeah.
those that mindset. Um, okay, so how can people connect with you? How can people get your copy of your book before
Yeah.
we wrap up?
For sure. So you can check out my website, www.sheenayapchan.com. You can order the book there. I have a free quiz that can unlock your self-confidence personality.
Oh,
If you're in the GTA area, the book is available on Indigo. You can also get it on Amazon.ca. But now I'm going to be going around in different locations of Indigo to have signed copies so that if you happen to be at that location, you can buy a signed copy of my book.
ah, so okay, we'll have all those links in the show notes, and also, I guess you would keep your social media up to date, like your
Oh yeah,
Instagram. Okay, okay,
definitely. So, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, I've updated. So, like, last week, I was able to sign some copies at Eaton Center, the Eaton Center location. So that was really cool. That was actually my first time because I didn't even know this was a thing. So,
oh,
yeah.
I didn't know that either.
And yeah, so we learn something new every day. And so it was really cool to see that. And then, there was people looking for me, or like they saw me signing the books and they were like,
Mhm.
can I get a copy? I'm like, sure, here's a copy. And then, some of them bought on the spot. So it was really cool.
Nice. Amazing. One of the things that we like to do here is do rapid fire questions
Oh, nice.
to wrap up the podcast. So are you ready?
I'm ready when you are.
Okay. So what are three strategies that you'd give to another woman experiencing an interruption with self-confidence right now?
Take it one step at a time. Well, I have a three-step process. So, of course, believe
Okay,
in
go.
yourself. Believe in
Hmm.
yourself. That's really important. That's the most important thing. I know it sounds cliche, but you really got to believe in yourself and have this
Hmm.
innate belief that no matter what happens, you can make it happen. Um, uh, Educate yourself, find different ways to build confidence because what may work for me might not work for you. And then, of
Hmm.
course, take action, right? If you're not taking action, nothing happens. And the biggest reason why women have low self confidence is due to inaction. So,
Right. And Kate, you're saying taking action, but if I'm listening to this, what would be an action that you would recommend that I take?
well, it depends on what you want to do. So, if you
Okay.
want to lose weight, what do you want to do? Start
Right.
working out, start a diet plan, research on different ways to lose weight, figure out what works
Mhm.
for you, things like that. Maybe you want to go for a light walk or have a goal of making 10,000 steps a day. So, those are some of the action steps I would take.
Awesome. Thank you. Who's someone that inspires you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's a lot of people. I mean, especially like Sandra Oh is someone that I really like looking up to because she's amazing. She's also from
Mhm.
Canada.
Yeah.
And she's won so many awards and accolades in her acting career. And it's not always easy, right? Especially being Asian in Hollywood.
Hmm.
To just you just have to break a lot of barriers to be seen,
Yeah.
to be taken seriously, instead of being seen as the lotus flower, the geisha, the prostitute and things like that. So, she's someone that I look up to.
Um, Beautiful. And what is a non-negotiable in your life?
A non-negotiable,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, setting boundaries. It's
Yeah.
important to set boundaries, especially as women.
Yes. Yes. And what would be your go-to self-care activity
Um,
or experience?
for me, even just taking a walk is great. Just
Mm,
having time to myself, or like we have a dog, walking the dog. Just that's pretty much self-care for me.
that's good. Yeah. I love walking. So that's and because I live close to the beach,
Oh my,
it's
yeah.
perfect. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much, Sheena. This was an amazing conversation. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I am going to check out your books. I'm going to order. I have it in my Amazon cart actually.
Oh, thank
So,
you.
yeah, so I'm really excited. And it's definitely a tool that I'm going to use in my community because self-confidence is number one
Oh,
and is
yeah.
our number one struggle here. Um, and all the other women who listen to this podcast, please go check it out and check out Sheena. Thank you.
Thank you.